It was never intended for this video to be viewed. Not by fans, not by the general public, and most definitely not by the family members whose lives were going to be completely upended. Nevertheless, in spite of all the chances, it emerged unpolished, unadulterated, and explosive, startling reality TV culture and starting an uncontrollable fire. Whispers followed Kirk Frost like a shadow for years. Every confident interview, every grin on camera, every declaration of redemption was followed by whispers that something sinister was just off-screen. Insiders offered recommendations, fans debated online, and critics conjectured. However, nobody was ready for what surfaced when a shaky video started making the rounds in private group conversations late one evening. It was all over the place in a matter of hours. Jasmine Washington was standing on the other side of the tape. So once you've watched it, you can't unsee it. Seldom is her shaky voice, her profound, piercing words, and her overflowing emotions captured on tape. The reconnection wasn't forced. This was not an admission made in front of the camera. This was a very different thing. It appeared to have been taken while neither of them was aware that anyone was observing, and it was sincere and pure. Fans are taken aback. Rumors, slowed down recordings, and captions shouting. This changes everything, as some viewers think the tape validates long-held suspicions, emerged on social media. Some claim the tape has been taken out of context. However, one thing is certain. When this video became viral, people's emotions were running high, and the reaction started right away. Family members were drawn into the mayhem as phone lines began to ring. Wounds that were thought to have healed were torn open once more when friends took sides. The tension only increased as the movie played out frame by frame. Was this an error, a ruse, or evidence that the truth had always been obvious? What occurs in the last seconds of the video makes this much more terrifying. Fans claim that the heated and profound conversation exposes a truth that neither of them intended to disclose. A quick look, a pause, a few words, and then nothing. The family was split apart. The fans were left wondering what was going on. And right now, everyone is asking this straightforward but terrible question. What else remains undiscovered? Hold on, if this is what accidentally spelt. Because this story won't feel the same until we look at what actually happened in that video. Chaos did not start the night the tape was revealed. Like a long breath before a scream, it started quietly and almost deceptively gently. At home, Kirk was pacing the living room while holding his phone near his ear and clenching his jaw so tightly that it looked unpleasant. Even though the caller was someone he trusted and shouldn't have been concerned, their voice faltered. "It's out," the voice declared. They were only 2 words, yet they struck like a punch to the chest. Kirk stood motionless, his thoughts racing as though he already understood the meaning. He promised that the video would never be taken out of that room. Jasmine was sitting on the side of her bed across town, gazing at her phone. Her face was constantly illuminated by the screen as notifications poured in. Messages from complete strangers, bloggers, friends, and admirers. Some were angry and empathetic, while others were looking for solutions for which she was at a loss for words. Her chest was tight and her thoughts were loud as she scrolled, her hands trembling. "This is not how it was supposed to happen," she muttered to herself. The truth was not meant to be revealed in this manner. Group conversations were taking off in a matter of minutes. Screenshots flew. Videos of reactions appeared more quickly than anyone could keep an eye on. Startled, audiences examined every moment of the movie, pausing, fast-forwarding, and focusing on incomplete sentences and facial expressions. As old disputes emerged online, feelings were running hot. Even those who had only witnessed a few minutes of chaos were confidently picking sides. Some believed Kirk to be dishonest. Jasmine was accused by others of chasing clouds. More intense, yet quieter. Some claimed that this was just the start. Kirk's home had a strained atmosphere. Doors banged shut. Voices could be heard. Dread held the family together more than love, even if they had not planned to be together. The moment the TV was turned on, the familiar yet blurry footage began to play continuously. Shaky but piercing, Jasmine's voice reverberated through the room, uttering sentiments Kirk had hoped would remain buried forever. One of the family members gasped. Another gave a soft shake of their head. For a long time, no one said anything. There was more silence than there was shouting. At last, Kirk broke it with a controlled, quiet voice that was beginning to crack. He maintained that the entire story was unknown. The movie was taken out of context, and it was private and never intended for public consumption. But as he spoke, the audience began to mistrust him. He was not taken seriously by everyone. Not all of them desired to. The ground had been prepared for this moment by years of whispering. And now the truth, or at least a version of it, was appearing everywhere. Jasmine's phone rang in the interim. She disregarded it. It kept ringing after that. At last, she responded, putting the gadget to her ear as if it were going to burn her. The person on the other line, who was close to Kirk, asked affirmatively, blaming tone of allowing such a thing to occur, reminding them that she had nothing to reveal and that she stood to lose just as much. Jasmine lashed back and raised her voice. The dispute quickly grew more heated as old grudges leaked out and comments poured over each other. By the time the call ended, Jasmine was crying, covered in mascara, and unable to distinguish between fear and rage. Outside, supporters congregated virtually, updating their accounts and anticipating announcements that never materialized. Bloggers alluded at exclusive knowledge. There was a lot of conjecture on reaction channels, with some claiming that insiders had verified the existence of worse content. Each rumor fueled the flames. The story was changing more quickly than anyone could keep up with each retelling, both in private and in the public sphere. The family was split. Kirk finally gave Jasmine a call late that evening. Both of them remained silent for a short while as the queue joined. The weight of their silence was practically audible between them. When he did talk, his tone was angry and agitated. He questioned her about her comprehension of the gravity of what she had done. Jasmine retaliated right away, reminding him of unfulfilled hopes, intimate discussions, and evenings when he had held her gaze and assured her that things would be different. Neither of them was ready to give up, so their cries overlapped. It wasn't handled. It wasn't attractive. Additionally, it sounded nothing like the meticulously chosen stories that fans were accustomed to. Something changed as the call continued. Kirk's rage subsided and was replaced by something more akin to panic. He asked who else might have the footage. Before responding, Jasmine paused, and her silence said more than words could. Later, fans would become fixated on the same pause in the released video, believing it contained the true secret. Kirk became aware that he was losing control during that phone call. All of their families had been impacted by the consequences by daylight. Friends were forced against their will to participate in interviews. Strangers were messaging distant relatives to inquire what they thought. People who hadn't spoken to Jasmine or Kirk in years felt forced to publicly back one of them. It was impossible to resist the intense emotions that saturated everything. The same message was conveyed by every click, scroll, and headline. It was impossible to reverse what had been revealed. As the sun rose, Jasmine sat by herself, reliving everything in her mind while gazing out the window. She experienced a sense of vindication as if the truth was finally being revealed. I was also afraid, since I knew that people become completely engrossed in this type of attention. Kirk, however, didn't get much sleep. He rewatched the video, picking up on things he had overlooked the first time and seeing how awful it appeared by itself. For the first time, he questioned whether this was the moment that would permanently define him. A fresh rumor emerged just when it seems that things couldn't get much worse. There are rumors that the film that was leaked was only a small portion of a bigger one, with far more explosive talks and incriminating accusations just waiting to come to light. Fans were shocked and anticipating the hit once more, knowing that the next occurrence would alter everything. Kirk and Jasmine stood on opposite sides of a growing abyss. Before either of them could respond, the rumor went global. No one could verify the existence of the longer recording, but by midday everyone was talking about it. Anonymous sources reportedly told bloggers about it. Reaction channels reportedly received excerpts. In the comments sections, fans were split. Some want the whole truth, while others cautioned that this was going too far. As conjecture took the place of facts and the narrative took on a life of its own, emotions were running high. Kirk made an effort to avoid it. In a stern voice, he summoned his crew and demanded damage control. They quickly schedule meetings. Terms like narrative, spin, and crisis are used when people speak over each other. Despite their meticulous preparation, one thing was evident. This was also not your typical scandal. This was one of those intimate stories that come out. They permeate emotions, gaps that come out. They permeate emotions, gaps. That draw was also felt by Jasmine. Friends called her, pressing her to tell the truth before it was misunderstood by others. Some advised her to keep quiet so she could protect herself. She was reminded by others of all the rejections she had encountered. She had been advised to wait her turn each time. She was sitting on her couch looking at a blank notes app on her phone when the voices began coming back to her. Frustrated, she typed a sentence, erased it, typed another, and then threw the phone aside. It didn't feel quite right. There didn't appear to be a good explanation. When Kirk's family got together again that afternoon, the simmering anger was closer to the surface. The room was filled with accusations. Some people blamed Jasmine for everything. Long before any movie came out, others silently acknowledged that Kirk had caused his own disaster. The tension was intolerable. Grievances unrelated to the incident suddenly found their way into the conflict, and old family scars were revived. Not only did the family differ about what had happened, but they also argued over Kirk's true identity. The world continued to watch from outside that house. The silence on both sides surprised fans. In this culture, silence is never neutral. People use it as a projection canvas to create their own interpretations of reality. Jasmine was portrayed by some as a strategist, and by others as a victim who had been taken too far. Kirk was depicted as a fool, a crafty individual, or a man constrained by his background. With every new concept, the chaos became more intricate. Jasmine finally spoke up late in the evening, but it was during a private chat that would later become legendary among insiders rather than in a public statement. She met with a trustworthy individual who had tracked the development of the narrative. As she spoke, her voice wavered, each word tinged with rage and tiredness. She talked of whispered promises, assurances that things would improve, and repeated pledges that patience would be rewarded. The weight she had been carrying appeared to be pressing down harder rather than lighter as she talked. Kirk's heart raced when he received a message the next evening. It was terrible, brief, and mysterious. They are conversing with one another. He didn't have to recognize them. He knew people who had been there, those who had overheard intimate chats, individuals who might not stay silent for very long. When he discovered there were more leaked videos, he became terrified. It has to do with decisions made over an extended period of time suddenly catching up. Despite his better judgment, he called Jasmine. This time, the exchange was more relaxed and controlled, like two people traversing a minefield. Kirk immediately inquired as to if she intended to continue releasing. Jasmine took a while to respond. She was cautious but strong when she did talk. She claimed that she could no longer defend him at her own expense. That was the final significant comment that separated them. It was like a door slamming shut, Kirk thought. Fans came closer as rumors of intimate discussions started to surface. As participants put together timeframes, retrieved interviews, and looked at body language from previous episodes, emotions ran high. Things that had seemed innocuous now seemed strange. Jokes became more sinister. Smiles appeared forced. Real-time changes were being made to the past. The feeling that something had been concealed for far too long was strengthened by each fresh interpretation. There was growing pressure behind the scenes. Kirk's allies pushed him to at least partially confess in order to minimize the damage. Some suggested that he wait for the storm to pass and deny everything, while some commended Jasmine for sticking to her convictions. Others charged that she was dragging things out to get attention. Jasmine was under stress. Every action they took was examined, evaluated, and magnified. Jasmine was having problems falling asleep one night, so she viewed the leaked film once more. She saw more than just the fight this time. She looked at her own face, the pain she had attempted to hide, the annoyance she had suppressed before. She shed more tears for what had been revealed than for everything that had gone unnoticed. 2. She came to the realization that no matter how things turned out, she would never be able to return to her former self. Kirk, on the other hand, was troubled by the same clip for different reasons and gazed at the ceiling in the dark. He recalled how anxious he had been at that precise moment, when he heard how defensive and cornered he sounded. The three were afraid of losing control. That anxiety had materialized. There was no more control. Everyone with a voice and a platform, including supporters and the broader public, owns this tale. Timestamps, letters, receipts, and other evidence that might totally refute Kirk's defense or harm Jasmine's reputation were purportedly in their possession. One thing was certain, even though nobody knew how things would turn out. With the storm showing no signs of abating, everyone was preparing for the next discovery that would tip the scales. Everything's temperature was altered by the receipt statement. Feelings and interpretations were no longer the only factors. It was time to present proof. Screenshots, voice notes, and timelines could support the narrative and prevent anyone from talking their way out of it. Fans were stunned once more and hurriedly turned the pages in anticipation of the surprise that everyone had promised. Like the atmosphere before a storm, the tension was electrifying. Kirk sensed it right away. Every time his phone vibrated, a shudder went through his chest. He was being asked how he was doing by people who hadn't spoken to him in years. Some were more straightforward, inquiring as to if the rumors were real and whether there were any messages that may destroy him. By giving everyone the typical prepared remark that is made in such situations, Kirk attempted to appear composed. However, He lost confidence on his own. He was aware of what was present. When he thought that confidence had been formed, he was aware of what had been spoken. A friend who seemed both thrilled and terrified told Jasmine about the receipts. "I'm thrilled that this could finally support her claim. I'm concerned because once something like that is launched, there's no way to control where it ends up." The idea of the repercussions made Jasmine feel nauseous. She wasn't innocent. She was aware that telling Kirk everything would not just cause him pain. Families, reputations, and even those who never asked to be engaged could suffer as a result. That duty weighed heavily on her chest. A few days later, Kirk and Jasmine unexpectedly ran into each other while their emotions were running high. It wasn't anticipated. It was forbidden for the public to enter. It was one of those times when everything seemed to be destiny. As the chaos around them subsided and years of unresolved tension suddenly returned, they exchanged glances across the room. The cameras were never able to capture Kirk's sense of exhaustion and weariness. Jasmine's barriers were taller than previously, and she appeared guarded. Neither grinned. At start, they used precise yet controlled sentences while speaking gently. She allowed things to get out of hand, according to Kirk. He was accused by Jasmine of attempting to silence her. Despite themselves, their voices became louder, and their anger flared up in outbursts. She remembered spending late nights waiting for unanswered calls. He told her about the risks he said he had taken. They shifted back and forth. There is a tremendous collision between two versions of the same story. The rawness and lack of polish, the truth combined with self-preservation, would have been palpable to anybody listening. They both backed off after the fight, but the harm was already done. They had been spotted together by someone. There were rumors that they had argued angrily. The distinction between reality and fiction grew even more blurry. When fans took the rumor at face value and added details that never occurred,